Conspiracy theories are most often a smokescreen to divert us from the true evil.
My dad was right. This family's money is dirty.
Imagination is far more fascinating than reality.
Welcome to Working for Uncle Henry, the podcast. I'm the series author and your host, Angela Mullins. Well, it is time for the event of the season, Aunt Edith's New Year's Eve party. This party is so important, it spans more than 2 chapters in the book. Chapter 7. Henry was in the parlor conversing with Professor Wingard, a university professor of economics.
I'm telling you, Henry, it's not good, not at all. Factory orders are down for 2 years now. Unemployment is at its lowest in 7 years. Use of temporary workers is even down. Commercial bankruptcies are up 9 months in a row. Industrial production is still down. And foreign investors are dumping our debt faster than you can say. Adios. Bah!
Henry declared with a wave of his hand.
The stock market is up and down, always has been. Art.
Henry wagged his index finger to stress the point.
Art goes up, always. The only hitch is liquidity. It's harder to let go of the art sometimes. One mustn't get too attached.
Art? A man of your intelligence knows the economy can't function based on the value of art.
Perhaps, but the value of anything is man-made. A dollar, after all, is just a piece of paper or cloth, and when one Picasso can fetch $180 million at auction and a Gauguin for twice that much in a private sale, your thinking might be short-sighted.
The professor swallowed down his glass of wine and shook his head in dismay.
It's bad, I'm telling you. And who cares about moral values with the economy falling apart? Henry, we desperately need your support in the party to get the right people in Washington.
Arthur, you know I stay out of public politics. Humans are corrupt. Therefore, any organization comprised of humans will eventually become corrupt, no matter its original intent. No, politics are much too messy. Besides, I'm chiefly a libertarian at heart.
Henry, you can't keep throwing your vote and your influence away like that.
One has to stay true to one's beliefs and mission.
What kind of mission is collecting art?
Henry grunted just before being commandeered by Madeline Carpenter, the local museum curator who thought of herself as far more important than she really was.
Oh, Henry, I must talk to you about a fascinating painting I've discovered. The young artist is a brilliant undiscovered, she added under her breath, teenager from Idaho. She won the Met's annual contest and is exhibiting it there now. Oh, I must simply have it, Henry. It will be valuable one day. I just know it.
Henry grunted another indiscernible response and maneuvered toward the dining room.
Colonel, what are your thoughts on the military using drones?
Came a question from his right. Henry merely acknowledged it with a wave and a nod and kept walking. Maintaining household privacy during a party of such magnitude can be challenging. The usual steps were taken, shutting down the nondescript elevator and locking the doors to the upstairs hallways. Gerard was tasked with patrolling the hallways to make sure no one wandered too far away from the party. This year, he was particularly on alert, and for good reason. As he rounded the back corner of the house and passed the kitchen, he caught sight of a guest headed up the back stairs. He cleared his throat to gain the man's attention. "Excuse me, sir, but the party is confined to the first floor. You understand the host's privacy desires, of course?" Simon Zachary slowly descended the stairs while pondering an appropriate response.
My apologies, but the house is so magnificent.
"It is, yes. However, the most interesting room is the library next door. Have you seen it?"
I just came from there. The number of books is astounding.
"Then may I show you the wine closet? The Colonel has quite the collection there as well."
No, thank you. I must return to the party.
Gerard bowed his head in acceptance. The smile that eased onto his face as Zachary calmly walked past the kitchen and around the corner signaled agreement that the curious Mr. Zachary should indeed rejoin the party. Parker camped out at the buffet table, sampling its goods. He had barely eaten since breakfast and was famished. The beautiful arrangement of the food, requiring tedious handiwork, was lost on him. After downing a super spicy shrimp cup, he searched for something non-alcoholic to drink. As if on cue, Gerard delivered him a ginger ale in a wine glass. After a few gulps, he spotted a line of watermelon cylinders topped with something creamy. Edith joined him in time to see his disappointed reaction to its taste. "What's the matter, dear?" she asked. "Oh, nothing. I just expected that to be sweet." "Oh, no, dear, that's not icing. It's goat cheese." Parker's frown returned, and Edith looked disappointed. Parker took her hand. "No, ma'am, it's not bad. I've just never eaten goat cheese before." Edith smiled. "Well, I expect there'll be lots of firsts for you this next year. Come, there's someone I want you to meet." She grabbed Parker's arm and pulled him toward the doorway of the dining room to a tall, frumpy fellow looking more awkward than Parker felt. "Parker, I want you to meet our local rector, Gene Godwin, or Father G.G., as we call him." She turned to the disheveled minister. "Father, I'd like to present to you my nephew, Parker." Parker put out his hand to shake. The minister appeared startled by the gesture and, in a quick response to recover, splashed some of his wine onto his sleeve and hand. He studied his hand as if trying to decide what to do. Edith snatched up a napkin from a nearby table, but by then Father Gigi had already wiped his hand on the bottom of his wrinkled coat. How do you do, Parker?" he said, grasping Parker's hand. Parker hesitantly reciprocated. "Nice to meet you, Reverend." "Please, call me Gene," he said. "Don't go in for formal for all the formalities of the church." Even his smile had a stutter. A waiter approached with a tray of drinks. Gene took another glass. "Father G. Parker repeated the initials with a questioning tone. It sounded more like a nickname for someone's grandmother. Edith patted Gene on the arm, causing a little more of his white wine to spill just over the edge of his glass. "We're all so proud of him getting his rectorship." Gene grinned, gulped his wine, then wiped his hand again on his coat. Parker wasn't quite sure what he found more unsettling about his aunt and uncle's minister, that he drank alcohol or the appearance he had just gotten out of bed after sleeping in his clothes for several nights in a row. Edith seemed oblivious to it all. "I just think it's so wonderful to have a minister who's named after God," she exclaimed. Gene chuckled. Your aunt has such a sense of humor." Another gulp. Tell me, are you Miss Vincini's cousin or brother?" "Cousin. Jennifer is an only child, poor girl. Quite like our Caroline," Edith added. Interesting girl, Miss Vincini." "Well, that's certainly one way to describe her," Parker said. He doubted Gene ever saw much of Jennifer. "Parker's father is a minister," Edith chimed in. "Oh, really? Where?" Father Gigi asked. "A little Baptist church in Georgia. I knew some Baptists once. Good people." Parker grinned, imagining his father meeting Father Gigi. Mrs. Carpenter eased her way in between Edith and Parker. "Father, Edith," she asked, taking her friend by the arm, "who is this lovely man?" Her eyes turned to Parker. "Madeline, this is our nephew, Parker Madison. He's going to be doing some work for Henry." Mrs. Carpenter smiled delightedly, making Parker blush. "Really?" Parker smiled shyly and nodded. "Then you must come by the museum. I have some interesting pieces I'd like your uncle to acquire." "I'm afraid I don't know much about art. My focus is books." "Well, I can teach you all about art." She slid her hand up and down Parker's arm. "I'm always available," she said with a wink. Parker flashed a reluctant grin. I believe I'll get something to eat." He dashed back to the buffet table where Henry was immersed in conversation with a young Arab man about quantum mechanics. Parker learned the young man's name was Dak Qatar, but didn't understand a word of their conversation, so he eased around the table, wondering if all the white, creamy contents were goat cheese. A slight commotion in the foyer drew everyone's attention. Parker followed behind Dak Qatar to see what was happening. "Holy Mother of Goddesses!" Qatar exclaimed. Parker's eyes followed Qatar's stare all the way up the east wing staircase, where Jennifer was making her entrance. She was goddess-like in a blood-red strapless gown flowing out from below the hips in a silk lace overlay. The flame pattern in the fabric glimmered with every move. Mesmerizing was all one could say. She glided down the stairs with perfect poise, shoulders squared, head level, one hand slipping down the banister, the other hanging elegantly at her side. Parker glanced back at Qatar. The man's widened eyes were glued to Jennifer, as were most others in the room. Parker grimaced at Qatar's obscene mutterings. He tried to come up with something halfway intelligent to divert Qatar's attention, but a hand grabbed Parker's arm from behind.
"Parker, come dance with an old woman and make her feel young again,"
squealed Mrs. Carpenter. She dragged a protesting Parker off to the parlor where the band was playing through a set of Nat King Cole classics.
"I say, Miss Vincini, you look ravishing tonight,"
said Professor Wingard, taking Jennifer's hand as she stepped down from the last stair.
"Dance?"
She smiled infectiously. "Definitely. But right now I'd much prefer some of Henry's special brute bubbly before it's all gone." The two strolled in agreement to the dining room and retrieved 2 glasses of Armand de Brignac Gold Brut.
"What exotic places are you off to next, my dear?"
Nothing exotic this time of year. The couture shows are next, so it's off to Paris soon. She took another sip.
"Here she is!"
exclaimed Edith, with Clay Harvey in tow. Harvey was a local artist and friend whose potentially brilliant career was stymied by alcoholism, various other addictions, and a general lack of stability. He was about Edith's age, but appeared several years older. His long, glistening gray hair was pulled back into a ponytailed group of braids. He wore a faded dark suit, enhanced by a silk ascot Edith had given him for Christmas.
"Jennifer, you remember Clay?"
"I do," she said with a greeting smile.
"He's too shy to ask," Edith continued, "but I do believe he would like to paint you."
"Paint me or a portrait of me?" she said, giving him the runway stare she was so good at, a tucked chin and mesmerizing stare. It was a look that drew you in like a magnet, but at the same time threatened you if you didn't comply with her wishes. Edith chuckled.
"Oh, my dear, you do say the funniest things."
"I believe I've already posed for Clay." Jennifer's eyes glared at Harvey as she sipped.
"Really? I didn't know that,"
Edith said, turning a questioning gaze toward Harvey. His weathered face blushed. "Well, we didn't exactly finish, did we?" Jennifer looked him up and down with a mischievous grin. "I only have a couple of weeks before the couture shows begin. Until then, we can pick up where we left off." Jennifer winked at Harvey and meandered toward the buffet where she had spotted her mark for the evening. It was time to lay the trap. She picked up a smoked salmon and avocado roll and took a delicate bite.
"These things are almost as irresistible as you,"
Dak Qatar said as he popped one into his mouth. Jennifer smiled. "I don't believe we've met."
"Dak Qatar, and you are Jennifer Vincini,"
he said, grinning from ear to ear. "And what do you do, Mr. Qatar?" He took a drink.
"Physicist at MIT," he boasted, "and I believe I have discovered perfection."
He gazed up and down her body. Jennifer was skilled at dealing with oglers. "And how do you know my aunt and uncle?"
"I'm a business associate of the Colonel's, or at least I hope to be. Brilliant project I'm working on. Tell you about it over another drink?"
Before Jennifer could decline, Henry beckoned her from a few feet away.
"Jennifer, I have someone I'd like you to meet."
Henry stepped aside to present a nondescript middle-aged man, dark hair, graying at the temples.
This is Simon Zachary, the new owner of the Chesapeake Club.
Oh, I like what you've done with the place. Are you here alone? Jennifer glanced around him.
I'm afraid so. My wife is working.
His voice was soft and difficult to hear over the ambient noise. On New Year's Eve? What a shame. What does she do?
She manages one of my subsidiaries.
He pushed his wire-rimmed glasses back up the bridge of his nose. The lenses were tinted just enough to disguise the color of his eyes.
Your uncle and I were just discussing the Mandella Effect. Do you believe in time travel and parallel universes, Miss Vincini?
Jennifer laughed. I have no desire to relive anything in my life or skip ahead, Mr. Zachary.
Please call me Simon.
He retrieved another glass of champagne for her from a passing tray, a less expensive brand currently being offered around the room. She accepted with a nod and a toast-like gesture. Besides, I'm quite enjoying where I am. Time travel? The mention of the Mandela Effect in this chapter is the first of, shall we say, many little hints of conspiracy theories. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do find them quite fascinating, so don't be surprised to find one or two or three or four, or you get the idea, mentioned. I'm also going to link below, if you are not familiar with the Mandela Effect, to a place where you can actually find out more about it. One of my favorite podcasts, or a couple of my favorite podcasts. We'll throw in two. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a minute to leave a short review. It helps out a lot. And thanks for listening. Working for Uncle Henry is a copyrighted publication, all rights reserved. Check out the books on Amazon. Purchasing links are in the show notes. The party continues next time on Working for Uncle Henry, the podcast. I'm the author and your host, Angela Mullins.